about to interview Mayor Pro Tem Daniel Salinas in regards to mediation and advocacy for the service agency, which is the City of Sunland Park. In a few moments, we will go ahead and take you into City Council chambers, where we'll be interviewing Mr. Salinas, along with the city representative and the spokesperson for Sunland Park. This is Daniel
Salinas. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Sunland Park.
Jaime Aguilera, I'm the City Manager for the City of Sunland Park.
Okay. And Daniel, how did you become a city councilor?
Through an election process in 2008.
Okay. And what was your motivation for entering the politics?
Helping out my community was one of my main motivations to enter. And as a young person, a lot of us who are originally from Sunland Park, we moved somewhere else to seek different jobs and stuff, but I decided to stay and help out.
And what would you say is the most rewarding thing about your work?
Helping people. It's a very rewarding experience.
You like helping people?
I like helping people.
That's great. And what would you change about your job if possible?
I would just like the people to be more involved to come to the meetings, to speak out as far as what they think their needs are and stuff. A lot of people don't take the initiative or the time to express how they feel or what they need, everything to the politician. That's a problem.
Everybody seems to complain, but they don't go to the source to complain to.
Exactly.
Okay. And have your personal values been affected due to the performance and duties required by your job?
No, not at all. I think my personal values have become stronger. I have become a totally different person from what I used to be.
So you've grown from your experience.
I have grown.
And how different is this responsibility from you expected when you started the position?
It is very different. It is not easy to deal with, especially with public money. As a city council, one of our main jobs is to be the finance board, so we control how the money in the city is spent, how much, where it goes, when, everything. And it is a big responsibility. We always have to think ahead as to what are the consequences are, and also the budget. We also have to stay within the budget. We can't spend too much, even if we would want to.
Yeah. And what are your plans for the future career in politics?
Well, I plan to run for mayor in these next elections. So that's my main goal right now.
If you do get selected as mayor, are you planning on pursuing a further higher up the ladder degree?
I mean, I always like to look as far in the future as I can, but for right now, my main focus is on winning the mayor seat.
That's great. Okay, now I'm going to ask the mediation and advocacy questions. I'll be referring to you, Mr. Aguilera. Now, how does a city utilize mediation?
Well, anytime there's a conflict between the city and another body, whether it be a person or a company or another agency, if we can't resolve that conflict, then we will usually seek the services of a mediator. And that person, what that person does is it helps us get together on a common agreement. So we're in this agreement. This person meets with both of us individually. That person, the mediator, then understands what each of our issues are and then is able to communicate between the two parties and bring those two people together to a final decision.
Okay. And does the city need to hold council meetings when they seek services to get approval?
For mediation services?
Yes.
Usually the way it works is the city doesn't doesn't look for the mediator themselves. What the city does is if we have a conflict, we have an attorney that represents us. And so it's really attorneys talking to attorneys. The other party has an attorney, the city has an attorney. The two attorneys essentially battle it out. It's a battle of words, and it's a battle of who's right and who's wrong. And then there comes a point where they can't talk any longer, where both sides are set to a position that you can't move from there, and the case is gonna go to trial. So before it goes to trial, it's the judge that says that the two parties need to mediate. And the judge is the one that tells us that we need to mediate. So it's not a decision of the council. We can decide to not mediate. So the attorney brings it to the city council, the idea of mediation, and we have a meeting, and it's usually in closed session because those kind of conversations are not subject to open to the public. And the reason is that they're very sensitive issues that are being discussed. In other words, our attorney is telling us what the other side is thinking, what the other side has in terms of their case, and what we have in terms of our case. We have a good case, we have a bad case, looks like we're gonna win, looks like we're gonna lose. And the attorney convinces the city council that we should go into mediation or we should not go into mediation. In other words, if we have a slam dunk case and we're gonna win no matter what, then why even go through mediation? But if there's any possibility that we might lose, then it's better if we go into mediation to reduce that risk.
Okay. So then that basically answers the next question, which is, does the city have its own attorney in mediation or just a mediator? You answered that it does have its own attorney, but you said they seek mediators as well. So there's two different, the attorney represents the city, and of course it's like acting like an advocate for the city's needs, but a mediator always has to remain neutral. So the city hires a mediator in order to do that process that you said.
Actually, the judge appoints a mediator.
Oh, the judge appoints a mediator.
The judge appoints a mediator. The two parties have to pay for that mediator.
Oh.
So we have to pay out of our pocket for that person's time to do the mediation. But we didn't hire them, and the other party didn't hire them.
Oh,
it was
okay.
a judge.
Okay, it's good to know. So, for example, what happens when someone does not seek approval and has contracts signed without proper protocol procedure? What happens?
Well, there's many types of contracts. There's major contracts and there's minor contracts. I mean, there could be a contract to get somebody to come in and cut the grass. You sign a piece of document, or you sign a document that says we're going to pay you, minimum wage to cut the grass once a week. And we do that as a contract service instead of our own crews because maybe it's something that's beneficial to the city. So that's a minor contract, and maybe it's only for the summer, and the city manager has the authority to sign that contract without going to the city council, as long as the money was approved by the city council during the budget. So a lot of this has to do with what is approved at budget in July. Once it's in the budget, then the city manager has the authority to approve these minor contracts. On a major contract, let's go to the other extreme, it's $1 million contract for services to create a new street. And in that case, the city has to, first of all, has to bid it. We have to put out a request for bids. Different companies submit the bids. There's a review of the bids. And then those are presented to the city council for approval. So the council approves major contracts. City manager approves minor contracts.
Okay. So in the issue of Mayor DeSantis and what happened in his situation, what consequences will the city face because of contracts that were signed without approval from city council?
Well, that's the case in which we can't comment because it's an ongoing litigation, and it would not be proper for us to make a comment one way or the other. As you can understand, if we say something, the other side is going to use that against the city, and we can prejudice the judge, or we can prejudice the jury. So that's why whenever there's a litigation that's ongoing, you always hear people say, no comment, we can't comment on it.
It's under litigation.
It's because of litigation.
Thank you. And what do you see as a future for mediation for the city of Sunland Park?
Well, mediation is always the best tool to use. You don't want to go to trial. You don't want to take a risk that you're going to lose. There's a lot more certainty when you have mediation because both parties put a lot of effort into putting their case together in mediation. And the mediator doesn't make a decision. It's the two parties that make the decision. The mediator just helps you make the decision. So eventually the two parties come together. It's a win-win situation because both parties come away with a victory of some sort. They didn't win they didn't lose everything, but they didn't win everything they wanted either. So it is a victory for both sides, and everything is dissolved, and there's a huge amount of money savings when you go to mediation as opposed to going to trial. Going to trial, you spend more money on attorneys, and you spend more money on the trial itself, and the judge, and so forth. So mediation is the best way to settle things. Sometimes you have to go to arbitration, which is the next step before you go to trial. In arbitration, somebody else makes the decision, that the arbitrator makes the decision.
Okay.
So that's the difference between mediation and arbitration.
Okay. Does the city follow mediator procedure when there are discrepancies between city and state? I don't know, like...
Well, yeah, as I said, you end up with disagreements with whether it's the city and the state, or whether it's a city and a private company, or whether it's a city and the county. There was a case in which the city and the county were suing each other many years ago, and we went through a mediation process, and we never went to trial because things were settled through the mediation process. So whether it's a state or it's a county or it's another city or it's whoever, it's always two different parties that end up mediating.
Okay. And the last question, I guess we already answered it. It was, what do you see as the future of mediation and advocacy for the city and this country? So I guess all the cities in the country follow the same procedure, even if it's larger cities like New York and stuff. Do they handle that also, like in Washington, D.C., mediation for the state representatives or stuff like that, do you think?
Well, every city in the country follows the same procedure. They mediate cases instead of going to trial usually. Sometimes they arbitrate, but that's not very often. In many cases, cities go to trial because they want to set an example. In other words, when you mediate or when you settle, mediation means you're settling out of court, is what it means. So if you settle out of court, in some cases it may send the wrong message. It may say everybody's going to come and sue us because we're going to settle. Well, cities sometimes go to the other extreme. They say, no, we're not going to mediate. We're going to go to trial because we want to send a message that we're not here to just be taken advantage of by people that fake accidents, for example. They slip on the sidewalk. They claim they're hurt for life and they want to sue the city. And if the city settles and gives them a small amount of money just to get them off their case, then it's sending the wrong message. It's saying anybody can claim that they slipped without even having to prove it. So in those cases, cities go all the way. They go to trial and they win because the person had an unsubstantiated claim. The question you asked about legislators, that's more of a private issue. It's, if they get sued, they're not being sued as legislators, they're being sued personally for whatever reason. If somebody wants to sue the United States government, then they don't sue the legislator, they sue the government. They don't sue the individuals. It's like the city council. People don't sue the city council, they sue the city.
Okay. I think that was all of our questions. I'd like to thank you again, and your name was?
Jaime Aguilera.
Aguilera, and
Daniel Salinas.
Daniel Salinas. Thank you so much.